So I'll talk to you in a bit. Susan, you can grab your phone. Corey, welcome to the podcast.
Man. Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. How you guys doing?
Doing good. Nick's running a little late, but he will be joining us shortly.
Yeah, that's cool. No worries.
And I got to say, I saw your Instagram, and I was impressed with the amount of followers you had, but I did not take a look until just like an hour ago. I started scrolling through your feed, and I saw the videos that you posted, and I'm thoroughly impressed. So I'm very excited for this podcast.
Which profile? The Fight Camp Conditioning one or mine?
Fight Camp Conditioning.
Right on. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff on there, man. We feature coaches from all over the world, so it's been fun.
You choose all the best ones, and you choose the content that you agree with, and you put it on there.
Yeah, I try not to discriminate too much. You know what I mean? But mainly it's just through networking and seeing who a lot of the top athletes are training with, and then reaching out, getting to know them a little bit, and then going from there.
That's really good. I didn't think to look at your separate Instagram account to see.
I don't promote it too much. Is mainly there's a few clips and shit like that from boys training, but it's also a lot of kids and family shit like that too. So
gotcha.
I don't really say too much.
Gotcha. So how did you get started in strength conditioning and like fight strength conditioning specifically?
Well, I've been training for 20 some years, and when
training in martial arts?
No, strength and conditioning, like doing that stuff for a long time. I started out in Chicago and then moved out to California about 14 years ago. And
that's where you're from originally, Chicago?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then, grew up wrestling and doing jiu-jitsu, that type of stuff. And then when I got out here, it was kind of a funny thing, but one of the ladies that runs the apartment complex that I first lived at when I moved out here said that I should meet one of the guys that just moved in. And it was a kid named Ian McCall. So I started
Uncle Creepy.
Yeah, Uncle Creepy.
So
yeah. So I started working with him, kind of helped him make that run where he first fought DJ a couple times. And we had a lot of fun doing it. But just after training him for a little bit, it's a small world, I'm sure, as you guys know. But, a lot of boys started coming in. And they bring friends and shit, dude. Every time we had a session, it was like somebody was bringing somebody new. So we were obviously doing something right. And that was at our first location. So we were training, the gym, our first gym was lined with shirts and shorts and banners and gloves and all kinds of stuff. It was pretty cool to us at least, but we kind of figured out that it was scaring the shit out of the general population that was paying our bills. So
that's usually how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, it was just silly, to be really honest, because, a lot of the boys they're tough kids, but because of the rest of their training schedule, we weren't, a lot of times their workouts weren't as difficult as regular Joes, because it's all they do all week is come see us 3 times a week, and otherwise they don't do nothing. So we could push them pretty hard, where a lot of the guys that fight, they got jiu-jitsu, they got boxing, they got Muay Thai, they got this, they got that. They got like 3 sessions a day and they're worn out. So if we do too much or too hard, they break. So but anyway, so we were doing that at the first gym, and then we decided to open a second location, which is a lot bigger, and decided to kind of bag make sure we bag all the fight stuff, as far as branding for the physical gym. And when we did that, I didn't want to leave the boys hanging. I knew there was a huge need for a lot of good information for those fighters and grapplers so they could perform well. And there wasn't a whole lot of resources at that time. So that's when I started that Fight Camp Conditioning site. And it was purely just to share information. And then, also to talk with other coaches. Because I realized, we do a lot of good stuff, but there's a lot of coaches around the world that do a lot of good stuff as well. So there's no reason for it to be all about me. It doesn't make any sense. So
it's like the different perspectives on strength and conditioning. And from the post that you posted that I was able to see, I saw like a theme, like a health, like structural integrity theme, like building that
Yeah.
first as your base, and then
Right.
everything else on top of that. And like I see that similarity in you and Lauren Landau.
Yeah.
So, and that's what got me impressed, because I have a few training certifications too. I have a degree in biology and health science, so I have a deeper understanding of training. But whenever I see, like, that's kind of like my first thing, like if you're prioritizing structural integrity for a fighter, like you just said, they were coming in, and the fighters were coming in, and the workouts that they had were easier than the general public because they have all these other workouts. That already tells me that you have understanding of how to build and not break fighters.
Yeah. I mean, they already good enough at breaking themselves already.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
I mean, just regular training's tough, and they don't want to pump the brakes. They don't want to take days off. And I think those mindsets, I understand where they're coming from. I love grinding it out and working hard and doing all that type of stuff. But when the goal is to show up and compete at the highest levels, health has to be a priority. If you're not healthy, you're not going to be able to perform at your best. And it's just the way it is. It's whether people like it or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Everybody wants the glamorous, like, crazy exercises.
Yeah.
But it's all like what I'm finding from my experience. Like I'll get, when I first moved to Denver, I was 25, and I get injured. I got injured like 3 times in 1 year, and I was like, "What the hell is going on?" There's a couple of factors, dehydration being one of them, and then not having, like, I was always strong because I would bench press and do all, like, I have decent foundation, but I didn't have enough structural integrity, and like those stabilizer muscles were not they were not strong enough to
Yeah.
support all the hard training that I'm doing already. And it wasn't until I started working with Lauren Landau. Hello?
Yeah.
Sorry. It wasn't until I started working with Lauren Landau that I learned the proper warm-up, mobility, all these things. So
Yeah, we went out there. I was out there 2 or 3 years ago and filmed with him and his whole crew, Eric and all them boys that are out there.
Eric,
They have such a. I'm sorry?
Eric and Nate Smock.
Yeah, dude, all those guys. I mean, I've
Yeah.
seen them. I was lucky enough to spend a day at their place and film with them. And then I've seen those guys at a couple times at the UFCPI or NSCA events and stuff like that. They got a good crew over there. They do an incredible job. They're very, very polite, humble. But I mean, those guys pump out some serious athletes, man, for sure.
They do. But what I want to hear is kind of, like, there seems to be a base that, like, you have a base understanding that's common with them. But what I want to know is your approach to training. Like, let's say, for example, I come into your hypothetical guy, right? Comes into your gym, pretty strong, lacks a little bit endurance, and has a few injuries here and there. And he's like, "Coach, I need you to get me ready for this fight. We have 8 weeks. How do you get started?"
Well, I mean, you're always going to start, my first question when anybody comes, a couple new guys came yesterday, and my first question out of the chutes is, are you healthy?
Yes.
Like, are your joints good? Are there injuries, ailments, like that? Because like you said already, I mean, we can't push past that and avoid it or neglect it. Or if we pile on a bunch of strength work or something explosive on top of some dysfunctional stuff, they'll fall apart. Like, something's going to happen, So
Foundation first,
yeah,
which is health.
first, and if people aren't healthy, I mean, it does happen for sure, where guys say, hey, coach, we got 8 weeks, but my elbow's banged up and we got to make this work, and I've had that happen all the time. and you just kind of, when it comes to injuries and ailments and stuff like that, I can use regressions and progressions and different types of resistance to keep them moving, right? But obviously the first step there is to talk with a therapist or somebody like that, if it need be, to make sure that they're pushing that injury forward, right? And making them better and healing that stuff up. And I'll coordinate with them to say, okay, cool. Well, hey, if I need to leave that elbow alone, I'll leave it alone. We can work around it, right? We could still do leg stuff. We could still jump and squat and hinge and do all this stuff. We'll do everything we can possibly do around it, if that's the case, right? The second step from there, once they kind of got, like, they're healthy, they're moving well, they're coordinated, then we can start raising the intensity a little bit and go into some more, like work capacity, GPP. There's a million names for it, but it's just lower intensity work done for a longer period of time, right? It's no different than if I was going to go and do jiu-jitsu or learn boxing or do any of these other things. I would hope that the coach would start me slow, teach me technique, get a lot of reps in, make sure the technique was still good. As I get tired, not letting it just completely fall apart, but building me up so that I'm capable to do the stuff that they're wanting me to do, and then at least in my head, right, all endurance and hypertrophy and strength and power, all it is you're just raising the intensity a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. You're making it heavier, 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 and then faster, 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 right? I mean, to make it really, that's all it is. It doesn't need to be super complicated. But we're not going to add weight. We're not going to add intensity unless they're ready for it, unless they're prepared for it. And then once we start transitioning and wanting to work more on speed and power and all that type of stuff, then, if we start exploding and the technique falls apart, we're jumping too much. We're doing the wrong stuff. So,
absolutely.
I just think of it all as like one long sliding scale. And I'm going to push guys as far down that scale as I possibly can before they fight.
I agree 100%.
And we'll be super conscious of everything else that they're doing during the week, so that I understand the stresses, all the stresses that they're going through. And then we're going to monitor nutrition and sleep and, whether or not they're fighting with their girlfriend or their wife or whatever it is, you know what I mean? It all comes into play.
That actually, you have a very deep understanding of this. Did you have a background in education in kinesiology?
I started doing therapy and like working with people with disabilities, which I laugh now because I tease the boys. I'm like, it's the same thing I'm doing right now.
So you started off as a physical therapist?
Not physical therapy. It was called recreational therapy that was working with people with disabilities specifically, right?
Sorry, I think Nick just joined us. Nick.
What's up,
welcome.
guys?
Hey, what's up, man?
Sorry for my lateness.
Yeah, it's all right.
Actually, I just got back from training with, Koilak, right?
I don't.
Coach Choi.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I still got my heart rate monitor on. That's how fresh I felt.
So you're out here in California too.
Yeah. I'm not too far from you. So he's in Riverside, but I live in Carlsbad. So that's why I took. Yeah. Yeah. It's about an hour and a half. But it's worth the drive.
Nick, before you rudely interrupted us, Corey was telling me about his background and how he got started.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just jump right back.
I was just kidding. I just wanted to hear a little more of his background.
But yeah, then I kind of stopped doing that. I right away, like I did that for about 3 to 6 months, something like that, and then quickly realized I didn't want to be in that like clinical environment, the hospital scene. That I didn't like it at all.
Yeah. I could relate.
And I literally was buying running shoes, and the guy knew me from high school, just from going in there, from wrestling and all that stuff, and he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what I want to do. Like, I was kind of lost, you know? And he said, hey, the personal training place next door is hiring. Maybe you should give those guys a buzz. So I literally called those guys up, scheduled an interview, shadowed. The guy said I could come in and work with those guys for a little bit. I shadowed him for like 3 to 6 months, and he kind of showed me the ropes and got a foundation started. Then just started training, you know. So I was working with a few athletes, a few regular Joes, like everybody, and then had a whole bunch of jobs between then and now, and just kind of learned along the way, you know.
Through experience.
Yeah,
you learned in the trenches.
But I mean, even that first guy that I was working with, he says, if you want to be better than, you know, 80, 90% of your peers, read something, watch something, learn something all the time.
Yeah.
And I kind of took that to heart, and, you know, just am constantly learning from a variety of different people in and out of the gym. When I had my gyms, I used it as an opportunity. I mean, being in Southern California, it was pretty easy to say, hey, we got 7,000 square feet of open space. If you guys are ever in Southern California and want to do workshops, you guys got our place open. You guys can come. So I hit up everybody I wanted to learn from and hosted workshops like every quarter, you know?
So you have your open mind and enthusiasm for growth and learning is a major contributor to your success. I mean, your Instagram shows it. Like you have all these different coaches that are showing what, Nick?
No, I was just gonna say, hey Corey, will you do me a favor and turn your phone sideways?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't. Okay, there you go.
Nice. Just so that we all match. So it'll look funny when it comes out on the YouTube. Yours will be like.
Oh yeah. I got you.
Yeah. So go ahead, Nick.
No. So you guys just kind of getting done with the background. Did you touch on anything else?
Well, so I'm saying the reason he's one of the best is because his enthusiasm for learning just kept him learning and growing throughout his career. But so the athletes that you're working with right now, you have like a supplemental, like you treat strength and conditioning as the supplemental a piece of the pie to training, but you're still the one overseeing the whole aspect. Do you have your guys wearing heart rate monitors or anything like that? Are you in charge of like telling them, oh, you know, you've been pushing it too hard, today's day off, like
hard days, easy days?
Yeah.
I really don't personally get too technical with it. The guys that are in the UFC have been fortunate, or if they're open to it, I've used a software called Omega Wave, which they'll just do like a 4-minute reading in the morning and before they start training, and it gives them a readout of not only their heart rate variability, but also there's something called DC potential, which is just basically in the most simple terms is measuring the efficiency of their their nerve signals, right? So there's like a patch on your head and a patch on your palm, and then it kind of runs for 4 minutes, and it'll give you visual feedback on your endurance preparedness, your speed and power preparedness, your strength preparedness, and then your skill preparedness. Like, wow. And that, from my understanding,
is that the program that Henry Cejudo's been talking about? It sounds like the same name. Do you
no,
know?
That place is called Neuroforce, is in Arizona.
That's right.
But I mean, honestly, there's a lot of ways to measure how your body reacts to stress, right? So if somebody goes out and clanks back like 15, 20 drinks, like, dude, their Omega Wave reading is shot, right? That has an effect. That has an effect on you, whether people realize it or not. Same as if you spar every single day or wrestle every single day live, right? If the intensity and the dose of that stress is too high and you're not able to recover from it, something's going to falter, and every athlete's different. So I don't know. I haven't used the NeuroForce system at all. I've only used Omega Wave. But it's important to measure that type of stuff, I think, because even the athletes that come and see me, they can be both. Let's say two guys come in and they're elite, right? They're both ranked top 10 in the UFC, and you'd think like, they're professional athletes. They should all be fine. What they do during this workout, their response to that workout might be the same. But a lot of times the response to a workout is completely different between two guys, you know? And that could be from a lot of different factors. So I think it's just a matter of monitoring it somehow. I know a lot of guys low tech wise, I say, hey, worst case scenario, just measure your resting heart rate first thing in the morning. Put your fingers on your wrist or your throat, and just tell me your resting heart rate every day. Monitor it, write it down. And if your heart rate jumps for whatever reason, like 5 or 6 beats from normal, take the day off. Like you can do something as low tech and simple as that, or you can have some fancy software if they're into it and they even use it. But if they don't use it, it's worthless. You know?
That's how I started, with just measuring my heart rate. Then it became heart rate variability also for my morning readiness. Now this is the third component that I've never even heard of. So my understanding, it measures your like nervous system readiness.
Yeah.
DC
That's pretty cool.
potential.
Is that like an app or it's a device that you buy?
Yeah, if you just look up Omega Wave. Omega Wave. They've been around for a long time. A lot of professional teams. I know the UFCPI had recruited a guy from Omega Wave that's in their facility that kind of manages that aspect for them. So if the kids they have like a team app, and then they're able to see if one of my guys does a reading, their team app gets updated, and then Roland gets a notification, and he can flag the boys or let them know if something's way off.
So can you gauge, like Omega Wave, I feel like is like on the top of the pyramid, but at the bottom you have the heart rate variability. Can it be that somebody's heart rate variability and heart rate is good, they're ready to go, but their Omega Wave is not good? Does that happen?
Like what has more weight? Like
yeah. Here, I'll tell you real quick, like what typically happens, and it's because you have people involved, right? And people are all different, and the reaction or their even desire to know this type of stuff is different, right? Some people are really into it. Some people are like, honestly, fuck that thing. I don't want to deal with it. I'm just going to train hard every day and be tough. And sometimes, I mean, you can only influence people so much, right? And if somebody wants to grind it out and that's the way they've always done it and they've had success doing it, they're probably not going to change, right? From my experience, people typically want to change when things aren't going their way, not when they are.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
and some people are like, maybe that kind of makes them a little bit of who they are. You know what I mean? Like dialing them back, changing them.
It could stress them out. I have a guy. Well, I mean, to be really honest, like most of these guys that do extremely well fighting aren't the norm, right? They got a couple screws loose. They like to get rowdy. They enjoy that type of shit, you know, which is cool. Like I love it. But I think, you know, at least from mine, I give them information, and then it's up to them. Like everybody makes their own damn decisions day to day. I only see my guys, like 2-3 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
They're not with me a lot more than they are, but I just try to provide like, hey, let's kind of lay out your weekly schedule. Let's make sure that you're hitting it like 100%, maybe once or twice a week, you know, and then we'll kind of lay everything out so that they're not killing themselves.
So
you know, they can actually recover from their week.
You have them redline no more than twice a week, right?
Yeah.
By and I mean like sparring or rest, like hard practices like that, or
right.
And then if once it goes more than twice, it's diminishing returns.
Well, because go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. You finish, please.
Well, because there's a lot of other work that week, right? So I mean, if let's say they spar Tuesdays and Saturdays, right? Or like in Lauren Landau's example, I believe their big sparring day out there was Friday night, right?
Yeah.
So when the guys come and see them on Friday morning, they did like an aerobic capacity, very, very light workout, just get the boys feeling good so they could actually perform and spar to their potential so their coaches got a good look. If he beat the snot out of them that morning and they went into sparring flat, the coach might think they're not prepared, but it's just because they're wiped out, they're tired, right? So you have to understand the rest of their schedule and everything that's going on, and then ideally organize the really intense practices all on one day. And then the next day should be a lot easier, maybe drilling or something like that, so they can actually recover from those hard days. If you just do something hard every single day, you never really get a chance to recover.
I was going to ask that. So when you said, like, if the heart rate, the resting heart rate or the variability is not looking good, and you tell them, like, okay, take a day off, do you have them take a complete, like, a rest entirely, or like maybe just drill, or does it depend?
Yeah, it just depends,
Okay.
Because it's a lot of factors, right? There's context to all of it. So, I mean, if it's going to stress them out that they're not doing anything and it's really going to bug them, then maybe they just pump the brakes and work on a specific skill or something like that, a combination, and do it a ton that they're trying to prepare for a fight, or something along those lines. Like, I'm not a skill coach, but I understand the stress that they're going through.
Keeping the heart rate low, right? Sorry.
No, I was saying that's me. Like, I can't take the, like, if I'm overdone, I'm like, okay, well then tomorrow is just drilling. And even if I'm just slowly going through the motions and my heart rate never gets above 90, like,
right, at
least I'm like instilling I'm doing something, but I'm not, like, that's helping me be prepared, but I'm not basically taking zero tax.
That's active recovery, right? By definition, if the heart rate's staying that low.
Last week, for example, I had a kid that he got after it pretty hard, like 3 days in a row, and was pretty beat up. And he really likes to surf. And I said, hey, dude, swell's good. Go surf. Have fun. And his reading the next day was all green. And he was like fried going into that day. But just being able to go out and play, get out of the gym, get out of that norm, it allowed him to still stay active. And he was fine.
Yeah, surfing wrecks me, but it's also because I suck at it. So
yeah, exactly. Me too, man. I just live in the washing machine and just get worked.
Yeah, yeah. So I wanted to ask you, kind of like what. So you were saying you're only with them a few days a week, and obviously, if they're only having one or two, hard red line days, those are probably going to be the sparring days, maybe wrestling. When they're with you, how much actual conditioning, like getting their heart rate to the roof, are you doing, or is that you mostly doing like strength and core stability, things like that?
When the guys, as far as conditioning goes, the guys that come and see me, I know from their schedule, they get after it pretty good, right, in their skill practices. And I know that they grind, and I know the intervals that they're running, like 20 to 60 seconds, 90 minutes, 2 minutes, 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Like, they're grinding it out pretty good, right? That lactic system, that where everything's burning, that's kind of the zone that they live in with their coach. Mm-hmm. So I've kind of learned to work above and below that, right? So if they don't have a fight scheduled and I'm going to do any type of conditioning, I'll recommend that they stay in that aerobic zone and just kind of build out that aerobic power, that aerobic capacity, that type of stuff at a lower intensity for longer duration, so they can build a good base. As they get close to their, what's that?
Like jogging or something along those lines.
Yeah, it don't matter to drill. It's just, it really matters just like where their heart rate's at for whatever it is that they're doing, right? So that could be drilling if they're disciplined enough to do that, right?
Yeah.
So
if it doesn't escalate in like 2 seconds and then they're right back to redlining again. But if they can do that, cool. But they could swim, they can bike, they can surf, they can play, they can do whatever the hell they want to do. But I want to build that low base system, right?
Mm-hmm.
As they start getting closer to the fight, we'll start doing a lot more explosive alactic type work so that they're able to repeat, to not only produce a lot of power, but then to be able to repeat that power throughout their 15 minutes or 25 minutes, whatever it is, right? Because I noticed a lot of guys will grind it out all the time, and they're normally at like 60 to 80%.
Yeah.
But they can wrestle hard for like an hour, but I've seen it. Like, I've been there. You're not going at 100%. And then when you get in a fight and the adrenaline's running and you actually have to go to 100% and you've only been training at 60 to 80, you will gas out just like everybody else if you're not prepared for it. So we work a lot. As the fight gets closer, we do a lot more explosive type repeats.
Kind of like in the low rep range. Or can you explain what alactic means?
Alactic's just like a 100-meter sprinter, like, is an easy way to think about it, right? Those guys can go insanely fast, but you can only do that type of stuff for like 5 to 15 seconds, right? The guys at the PI, the UFC PI, when they came out with their manual, had a lot of really good statistics. And like a 135-pound fight, will typically have about 3 to 4 explosive bursts per minute.
Wow.
Right? The longest flurry in UFC history, I think, is like 7 or 8 seconds. So, and I mean, in the moment, everybody's like, holy shit, I can't believe those guys just sat there and pounded each other in the face for that long.
Yeah.
But it really needs to just be like a 3 to 5 second explosion, followed by a little like 10 to 15 seconds of low movement, moving around and stuff like that. And then being able to repeat that for 15 minutes.
So when you do that alactic work, like, let's say you're doing something explosive, jump squats or something, whatever. Is it like you're going to do a set of 3 or 4, and then you're taking like a few minutes rest, or is it like an interval thing? You're taking 20-second rest and going again? Or?
If you want to develop power, you're not really worried about the capacity of that system or your ability to do it for over and over and over again. To develop power, you need a lot of rest. Right? And that probably be further away from the fight. You're going to develop that. And then as you get closer to the fight, you're going to develop more your ability to repeat that over and over. So it becomes less about power development and more about your ability to recover from those bursts.
Sure. Okay. Makes sense.
So you recover while moving?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes we'll do a burst and then I'll just have them, shadow box or do some movement drills. Or sometimes we just sit. Like, it just depends on the person.
Yeah. Because it's just about getting your heart rate back down, right? And then processing out that lactic acid.
Because the more you do, I mean, if we dig ditches with a shovel right now, out of the gate, none of us have done it before. I don't know what you guys do every day, but if we go dig a ditch, we're probably going to have torn up hands, and we'll be sore as hell, and we're going to sleep good at night. And we don't want to do it tomorrow. But if you do that shit every day, you get used to it, and your body adapts, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's no different with this type of stuff. We should vary the intensity and the volume of training throughout the year so we're not constantly grinding in the body on one certain way. And then, obviously, you want to scale your training so that you're at your peak performance for your event, right? Which will mean, you're going to vary the training during camp, outside of camp. And it's always changing. It's always evolving.
Mm-hmm. I really, go ahead.
I was going to ask for your elite athletes, how many hours a week are they putting in total training? Like, and I'm talking about stretching, I'm talking about sauna. If you had to sum up their training volume, how many hours a week do you think the elite athletes are putting in?
They're 100% full time. I get text messages at 6:30 in the morning, and I'll get text messages at 9:30 at night. So they're training probably 2 to 3 times a day. They're going to some type of therapy, therapy, massage, stretching. They'll do hot and cold therapy, recovery methods, sauna stuff. They're, prepping food or doing whatever. But I mean, they're full time, man. It's an all day thing. They don't really get a whole lot of time off.
Yeah,
well, what I'm saying is how, where their heart rate's going up, whether it be 100 beats per minute or 180. How many
actual
hours?
training.
How many hours? Well, physical therapy, your heart rate could go up a little bit too. Sauna, your heart rate goes up a little bit too. When you're stretching after a hard training, your heart rate still, like when you do some mobility, your heart rate's still not at its baseline. That is my question. How many hours do you think they're putting in? 25, 30?
If you say they train twice a day, right? I'd be surprised if I found too many people that were at an elite level, like in the UFC and stuff like that, that didn't train twice a day.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they train twice a day, Monday, Tuesday. I've heard a lot of people taking Wednesday night off. So they train just once on Wednesday, so they get a little breather, and then going Tuesday, Thursday hard, and then maybe Saturday morning, then taking the rest of the weekend off. So you figure if that's the example, you got 4, 5, 9, let's say 10 sessions a week. Sessions probably what, hour and a half?
Yeah, 90 minutes. That's usually what I shoot for.
I mean, nobody shows up on time, and everybody gets going late, and it goes a little longer than you think, right? So,
you know what? So are you from California originally? Southern California?
I grew up in Texas and Chicago.
Oh, really? Were you in like the gym and like martial arts scene at the time?
I grew up wrestling and doing jiu-jitsu. So.
Oh, okay. That's it. In my experience, I have never been to Texas or Chicago, but in all the places that I've been, that whole pro practice starts at 10, so everyone show up at 10:20, and we'll get going at 10:30.
Yeah.
That's like, in my experience, is a Southern California thing only. Like I remember, when I moved to Colorado, and I'd be late, like the whole practice would turn around and be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like,
I'd give him so much shit.
This is where we're supposed to get here.
I'd give him so much shit. I'd be like, "Hey Nick, how do you expect to be a champion? You can't make it to practice on time." I would say it so loud that the coach, our wrestling coach, was a hard ass, would hear it and give him shit too. I was just repeating what he said before.
Even if I was like 3 minutes late to practice, that people would be like, dude, what a loser.
Yeah, I hear you.
To contrast that, I show up to practice an hour early. And if I don't show up an hour early, then I'm late. Yeah.
Well, Root has a very extensive like warm up thing that he goes through.
Neck gains.
Right? Neck gains. Actually, I wanted to ask about that. So Arut and I are both neck muscle enthusiasts. So maybe we could talk a little bit about that, like what kind of stuff you're doing, and then also how important or not important it is, and then why is it important?
I think when I think about weak links, like common weak links, like if you look at like common injuries and stuff like that with these types of sports, neck is definitely up there. Upper back, shoulders, low back, trunk. You think about people's hips, like most people's glutes and stuff like that, their grip, their feet. Those are all real common weak links, right? Yeah. Because I think our sedentary lifestyle, when it comes to like the feet, your hands, your ass, and your trunk, like we don't really do much. Like it's really freaking easy to live where we live. You know, it's not like we're not carrying water buckets half a mile home or working, building stuff or using our hands all day long. Most of us, right? Life's pretty sedentary. So that catches up with us and creates a lot of weakness. When it comes to the neck, it's the same thing. Most people staring at their phones all day long. Not only is everybody protecting their neck and their chin in training, but then they're just staring at their cell phone, and everybody's head just continuously just keeps falling forward, and everybody's posture is terrible, and it just makes it worse. And then obviously getting punched and choked and grappling and scrambling and doing all that type of stuff, you use your head a lot, right? So, I mean, there's a reason why a lot of wrestlers have pretty thick necks because they're using that shit all the time. Right? It's no different than a plumber having strong hands. So I think it's one of those things, like typically I'll use a lot of those types of exercises to address those areas as accessory lifts, like towards the end.
That's the cool down. That's what I do.
Or ideally, I'll integrate them into some compound movement. So like if instead of just doing a chin up, we might be doing a chin up with some messed up grip or something like that. So they're forced to integrate it with all the other stuff they're using.
So for you, it's more of an injury prevention tool because you know, a lot of people are of the school that neck muscles help take a shot. You know, you're absorbing impact and things like that.
The research and everybody that I've talked to about that agrees that absolutely it can help you prevent injury, but it's not going to help you from getting knocked out. Because typically the knockout shots are the ones you don't see coming, and they just because you're strong, it's not gonna help. Right?
I was thinking the other day because I was like of that school of thought. I actually so I knew that was gonna be answered because you addressed it on your Instagram like a week ago, or a few days ago maybe. And I saw that and I started thinking. And I've been doing a lot of neck stuff. And when I started doing neck stuff and I had to pick the amount of weight that I was putting on there, that's what made me think like, wait a second, like I could like at max pull like 20 pounds maybe and tweak my neck, you know, and like how many pounds of force are in like a left hook, you know, probably
huge.
You know, I don't know what that is, but I'm sure it's 3 digits, right? And
from my understanding, it's when the jaw goes up and hits that, you know, the nervous signal your lights are out, dude. It's not a muscular thing. It's a nervous system thing that makes you drop. So, I mean, you know, I think the next stuff is incredibly beneficial. I think it's a huge piece of the puzzle for combat athletes, but I don't believe it's going to help people from necessarily getting knocked out all the time.
Knocked out? Well, yeah.
Does that break your heart?
No, because I see what I agree with that. Yeah, like if you don't see a punch coming, no matter how strong your neck is, good luck.
Yeah, right.
mean, but if you do see a punch coming and you brace for it and you clench your jaw a little bit, I feel like it definitely helps absorb the impact.
Of course it'll help. It's going to keep you from getting injured, you know?
Yeah. Did you have anything specific you wanted to get into? Because I had you start. I know you had a few questions, so I'll let you go.
Your video just disappeared. What is that?
I'll be right back. Give me 1 second.
Okay. So this back to that DC potential. So it measures your nervous system readiness, right?
Yeah.
Like if is it like? What's the measurement, I guess? What is it?
Oh, man. If you want to get into the technical aspects of that whole measurement thing, there's a OmegaWave, a whole handbook and manual that I have on the website. So if you go on fightcampconditioning.com and search OmegaWave, I've interviewed the lady that runs North America. And she did an incredible job explaining a lot of that stuff in more detail. And then you can download that book for free and just geek out if you want.
Yes, and I will do that. That's good. So another thing I want to ask, but you actually already covered it. So on the days off, as long as if you bring your heart rate to like below 60%, as an active recovery, that should probably even help your recovery, not hinder. Like,
sure it does.
Because you're getting that extra blood flow, right? You're getting the heart pumping just a little bit, kind of staying engaged and just moving the metabolic waste along your body.
Yeah, so, it's good to move. Everybody should move more.
And
then you just got to choose the appropriate activities. I mean, you know, so that you're, just a variety of activities, I think, makes people better athletes, you know?
The more, the better.
Let's one of the things I wanted to ask about, because I've seen pretty much every strength and conditioning coach that I've worked with has laid this out in a different way. But how do you run your phasing and your periodization? You know, what does that look like on average? I'm sure it's different for everybody, right? But
you already talked about it a little bit.
We kind of talked about that at the beginning, but it's pretty simple. I mean, there's basically 4 or 5 questions that I ask people, and they're very, very simple. The first one I'll ask everybody when they come in is, are you healthy? And that changes from week to week, right? I mean, somebody could be healthy last week and they show up on Tuesday and I'm like, hey, where's everybody at? We all good? And I ask it every single time, right? And if they're not healthy, I have to stop. I have to address whatever it is going on and adjust the workout accordingly, right? Whether they're 3 weeks out from a fight or 3 months out, it doesn't make any difference. We still have to address it some way, shape, or form, right? Second one is, are you in shape, right? Cardiovascular and muscular endurance. Are you able to even perform for the time needed, right? And then we can start playing in, are you strong? Strength is a huge component that everybody agrees with. Even if you're twice as strong as the guy you're fighting, your conditioning, so to speak, is going to be better because you're not going to have to work as hard to push that guy around. He's going to have to work twice as hard.
Right.
And then, are you powerful? Can I get that guy a little bit quicker, a little bit faster? Can I get him a little bit more explosive before he needs to compete? And typically it's that. I push guys down that sliding scale as far as I possibly can without hurting them, so that they are as violent as possible when they need to be, you know?
And is that
order, Nick, though?
Like, what?
It went from health, capacity, then strength, then power. That was like the last one, power and explosiveness. But it's on that spectrum. Like first, I don't know if spectrum's the right word, but it's in that order of operations. The foundation is health, then capacity, then strength, power. Power is the top of the pyramid.
Is that chronologically how you approach it, like throughout a fight camp?
Yeah, typically.
Okay. Just finish out with power, and then are you doing, like, when you get into those last few weeks and you're doing power, is it just like pure power output or
no,
capacity?
Typically we'll go, if they're strong enough, and then we can start working on, peak power, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting them to produce more power, and then we'll transition into getting them to repeat those explosive efforts leading into their fight, right? Mm-hmm. And that can involve, we're manipulating volume, we're manipulating intensity, we're manipulating all that stuff so that they can peak for their event. So like 3 to 4 weeks out, they're starting to maybe cut weight. That needs to be taken into account. All the other skill coaches that they're working with, they're like, hey, this guy's got a fight coming up in 3 or 4 weeks. Everybody's hammering on these kids, So I just give them a pretty short, abbreviated dose to fire up their nervous system and make sure they're healthy.
Mm-hmm.
They can move quick. Yeah, they're moving quick. They're able to repeat those explosive efforts. All right, cool. Stop. Like, pump the brakes. We don't need to do a lot. My sessions, 2 and 3 weeks out from a fight can be 30 minutes or less.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's really short and abbreviated, and I do a lot less today than I did even, 6-8 years ago.
Wow.
It's always tough for me to be accepting of that in that phase, when 30 minutes in, all right, we're done. I'm like, you sure?
Well, here's what I did to help with that. You explain to them that I wanted them to be violent, right? And they'll agree. I'm like, yeah, that's a good thing, right? You want to be as violent as possible for your time. You don't need to train 8 to 10 rounds when you're only fighting 3. I want you to be, teaches you the wrong thing, in my opinion. I think you'll get people's tendency is to, if the coach says, hey, we're going to do, 8 rounds today, hope you got your cup on, bite down on your mouthpiece, and everybody shows up. Just be tough, yeah. Right? Everybody that I talk to is like, I go, well, how do you come out first and second round?
You pace
like,
yourself.
you slow, you pace yourself. You're like, God damn it, this is going to suck.
Yeah.
Well, what that teaches people to do is to come out slow. So a lot of guys that come out slow in a fight come out slow because that's how they've taught themselves over the last few months, right? Or years, if that's the case, right? Where if you just say, look, you're only going to do 3. I need you to be violent from the bell to bell, right? You have to be explosive. Well, I'll do the same thing if I'm having them work. I can show them output. I can show them numbers. Like we use a pulley called VersaPulley, and it has a digital readout to show me the output that they're doing, right? How much force are they producing? Well, then what I learned is everybody likes to compete. So if I get the boys, like 2 or 3 guys competing to hit a number and talking shit, their numbers go through the roof.
Yeah.
You know? So then I've learned to just kind of make it like, all right, guys, look, I need you to do 3 reps or 5 reps of this thing. And you're not allowed to go under this number, right? And, you know, then we'll have someone, you know, loser has to buy whatever, you know what I mean? Or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
And then I get the numbers I'm looking for, right? Because then it's a competition. It's fun. It's in the intensity and the volume that I was shooting for, but I had to create an environment where they had to compete. If it's not a competition, a lot of guys don't turn on, you know?
Right. Yeah, definitely. Well, it's something that you do so much, it's hard to like be excited for unless there's something on the line. Right. Even if it's like your pride or whatever.
Like I had an Olympic wrestler that somebody brought in, and he came in a few times, and I literally asked the guy who brought him, I said, "Why'd you bring this dude? He's fucking lazy." Right? And then he came in late, of course, one day, and he had to curse a talent, right? He had to curse a talent. But he asked me, we were doing like a broad jump or something like that. We were doing testing, doing broad jumps and stuff like that. And he goes, "Hey, bro, what's the best score?" Right? And I go, "Well, what's your best score? You ain't even done it." He goes, "No, what's the best score, period?" And then I realized, like, all right, so I told him. And when I started just playing games with him and making everything a competition, dude, his Olympic wrestlerness came out, dude. He was a beast. But it had to be a competition. He wasn't into just just going through the motions, you know?
That's the psychological side of training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a weight, maybe it's a numbers. People measure bar speed, people, you know, time stuff. You can do it a lot of different ways, but I think that's an important piece sometimes to throw that in there to really get that 100% that you're looking for, you know, when you need it.
And that's nice. That's the nice part about when you're doing strength conditioning with the team and not just by yourself. You have, like, whether you're deadlifting or whatever, you just have these. You even if it's silently inside your head, you're competing.
Right.
You want to do better than the next guy.
And I think that's when it also becomes important to have tests, to have, you know, to track your efforts, because it all can bleed together pretty quick, and you don't remember, you know, and you know, a month, 3 months can go by, and you're still using the same weight and going through the same motions, and everybody falls into their habits, and you stop making progress.
Yeah, definitely. What would you say is kind of the biggest difference when you're applying strength conditioning to MMA, like as opposed to some of the other like team sports and things like that? Or is there a difference?
There's a huge difference. One, I mean, we got all the other skill training that they're going through, right? But every sport has practices. That's not unique. But the demands or the energy demands of this sport are unique, right? I mean, football's 3 to 5 seconds at a time, with
right?
A lot of rest in there. So I mean, those boys have it's a tough job for sure, but they're insanely explosive. And I don't, you know, from fighting and stuff like that, you've probably seen the guys that come in, you know, from that environment that are huge strength, crazy power output, but they can't hang.
Yeah.
Right? They don't have that energy system built out. Or, you know, from like somebody like soccer where they're, you know, running constantly pretty much for like 90 minutes. I mean, they might have a huge gas tank, but maybe their power output, their strength and power and output isn't there, right? With MMA, you got all these characters that, you know, you'll have a striker versus wrestler or jiu-jitsu versus the striker guy. And I think that's the perfect example of, like, those guys are all different, and you need all of it to be able to compete. Because if you get a guy that's a striker and you just grind him up against the cage and put him on his back and make him fight and carry your weight, they'll fall apart if they're not prepared for it. Where the wrestlers can do that shit all day long, right? But they might not have the snap or the pop on their stand-up, right, as a striker may have. So maybe that's their weakness in the grand scheme of things, you know?
You gotta have it all in MMA.
What?
I think you gotta have it all in MMA. You need the endurance. You need the power. It's just like, it's so much. You just need so much. It's never ending.
Yeah. I think that's when the periodization and learning when to do certain things is so important, you know?
When in relation to competition?
Yeah.
So do those things like work in opposition to each other? Like, can you peak both of those things, or is it something where, like, the more power you gain, you lose cardio, and then vice versa?
I've talked to a lot of people that train a lot of these guys, and a lot of people fall in, like with Lauren Landau, they'll do like a concurrent training schedule where they are trying to build all these qualities throughout every single week.
Right.
And I think that's an incredibly intelligent approach, because you can have some ebb and flow to your week if you get the schedule right, and then everybody's on board and your body stays healthy. Plus, I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of last-minute opportunities that pop up. And if you're, you know, you're fat and strong, you're kind of shit out of luck, you know? When it comes to it, you know? So I think having that rhythm to your week and just kind of, these guys, fighters don't need to have the vertical or the explosiveness of an NFL guy. We can work towards it, but we don't need a 42-inch vertical.
Right? Yeah.
You kind of need to be gray. It's not black or white. You need to just kind of be gray in the middle with everything. Kind of good, decent at a lot of stuff, right?
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah, I mean, it really does become that. And then obviously you'll have a little bit of variance from athlete to athlete in that scale, but it is important. You can't let anything fall too far off.
But let's say, like taking your example of a soccer player versus an NFL player. So an NFL guy has lots of power, but not so much cardio, and then the other way around. Is that because he's dedicating so much time to his power, or is doing that power work, does that actually do you inherently lose cardio?
No, you're not going to lose. The thing of, it's like when people say, if you're trying to get strong, like people that lift in the weight room and they're trying to get big numbers or put on size, they're scared to death to do cardio. It's foolish. It's just so stupid, because, you know, there's a lot of dudes that work all day long. Like, think of a blue-collar dude that digs ditches or works construction or something like that. I've wrestled and rolled with a lot of those guys, and they're fucking savages.
The strongest guys, man.
By far. And it's sub-maximal work all day long. Right? Like a farm boy. They don't max out. He's not trying to pick a cow up. He's just doing low-level work all damn day, and he has since he was 5 years old. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that builds a lot of strength, man. And I think that, you know, I know it's like Olympic lifters, you could say, or like NFL guys. Well, they're like the freaky top of the food chain, and their performance is above their health, right?
Yeah.
And they have to max out every single minute thing they can possibly think of to get like 5 more kilograms on the bar or whatever it is, or if their 40 speed is subpar, when they go to the combine, they're screwed. They don't get a contract and they miss out on millions, right? I don't necessarily believe that the MMA fighters or grapplers need that elite level of any of it.
Right.
So I don't think you can do all that. You can do a lot of that stuff on the same week and develop those qualities and maintain them. And you can push them forward at certain times of the year if it's appropriate, but I don't think we need to get as crazy as like an elitist, like kind of person that's their whole world is this like speed, for example,
Yeah. Yeah.
They just specified in that. From what I understand, you're saying there's only a certain amount of workouts you have in a week. And these athletes choose to put all their workouts in that one basket. But it's not that doing that makes your cardio worse. It's just you're just spending more time on explosiveness.
We get better at the things that we train.
Right.
Period. And if you don't train something, then something gets worse.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the most simple way to think of it,
Yeah, definitely.
Do you think
Yeah,
I have one final question, and this is very important to me. Do you think somebody comes into to you with shitty cardio, like below average cardio, and but like their goal is to become a cardio machine? Do you think that's possible?
Yeah.
Or is that a genetic?
I do. Absolutely it is. I mean, it's just a matter of whether or not they'll have the patience to build that foundation.
The capacity.
The foundation, that building that aerobic capacity, aerobic power and capacity isn't necessarily sexy. It's not fun, right? It's no different than somebody that, like, everybody wants to do all the big strength and power stuff that they see on Instagram that gets a lot of likes, which is rad. I get it, but we all have to do the boring kind of monotonous things.
The steady state.
Yeah, not even just steady state, but even just like aerobic intervals and going through that. And then it's a pretty tedious process if you really get down to it. But it absolutely can be done. I mean, you just look around and you say, okay, cool. Like what I always do is, who has the best cardio or conditioning, right? And maybe you look to, triathletes, maybe you look towards runners, distance runners and stuff like that. And then you can pick their brain and figure out what they're doing and how they do it. But all those guys have developed that over years, Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So conditioning wise, I do believe, I think the biggest mistake people make with conditioning is they do way too damn much, and even if you don't have a fight scheduled, you're smashing yourself. And it's kind of, what happens typically is people will grind themselves up. It typically will get hurt because their body's just broken down. And then when they're hurt is when the wheels fall off, because then you're sidelined and you're out. It's like COVID for the last 3 months. You got injured, you're out for 3 months. Good luck coming back. Like,
I think, I just saw that on your Instagram. I think it said people overestimate the short term and underestimate the long term. That sums up what you just said, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like the turtle in the hare, right? I hated that shit when I was young, but it's the truth, man. It's like, if you're just a steady Eddie, like, think about it this way. Let's say you take 2 weeks off every year, right? Let's say you train, let's say you guys train with me 3 times a week. That's 150 sessions a year, right? If you miss one, like you miss a session once a week, right? Happens all the time. Somebody misses a session. That's 50 less sessions in a year. If you compound that by 5 years, it's 250 sessions that you missed. 250 sessions is a ton.
Yeah.
Right?
That's like taking 6 months off.
Oh, it's killer. But that's the game, right? I mean, nobody that's a professional fighter has probably been fighting for less than, what would you say, 5 years, 10 years?
To be a pro, yeah, I mean, probably 5 years, yeah.
5 years.
5, yeah.
So there you go. There's a reason why certain guys do extremely well and others struggle. And I truly, with all my heart, if you ask any of the guys that train with me, they're like, what's most important to Corey? They all will laugh and say consistency, you know? Because if they don't show up, they get a text. Like, where the fuck you at? You know? Like, what's going on? Like, what are we doing? You know? So, because I realize how important that is, not only for their athletic development, but even psychologically. It can, if people take a fight last minute and they know they haven't been consistent, that doesn't help them. Right? So, I mean,
I was saying, you like kind of summed up my whole, like the whole premise of my career, or like the way that I've approached it, because I talk about this all the time, but like when I started training, I was just super unnatural. Like I had the whatever the opposite of talent is, that's what I had. And I just thought like, all right, well, over the years, like over a decade or 15 years, like if I just don't miss days, that guy's gonna miss so many over 10 years. Like that's enough time, enough practices for me to catch up. You know what I mean? And so far it's true. I've only ever met, there's actually a friend of mine that's going to be getting his black belt soon. And I was just thinking about this because he's the only guy that I've ever met that started like after me and then eventually passed me. And he only does jiu-jitsu, but like I'm not mad about it at all. But like it's cool to see, because I know he puts in, because he only does jiu-jitsu, so he's only done that one thing. Like I know he puts in more mat time than me, like for jiu-jitsu. Right. I'm like, that's all it is. That's like every single day, everyone counts. And I've heard actually like Kobe talking about that when he talks about off seasons and things like that. He's like, I've been doing this off season stuff since I started. Like I stay on it all the time. So no matter how much work you did last summer, like you're never going to catch me. I've got a 15-year head start of like just doing off season work, you know? No
doubt. I mean, it's a huge deal, right?
Yeah.
So I heard, I was with, same on that point, but I met Randy Couture at an event, and I asked him, I said, yo, I don't gonna bug you for long, but I go, how the hell did you last so long? Mm-hmm. Right? 'Cause the dude fought when he was what?
47.
47?
48.
So, and he laughed and he says, win, lose, or draw, I was back in the gym on Monday.
Yeah.
He said, we take it slow and stuff like that. I wasn't going to, get in there and bang him up. But he goes, win, lose, or draw, I was in back on Monday and I never, ever stopped training. And he goes, I see guys all the time. They win, they lose, they disappear for a week, a month, whatever it is. And then when they come back, right, it's like our current situation right now. I keep telling the boys, like most of my guys been pretty consistent, but people come back in after being off for a few months and they want to spar and get back like they wanted, they were before. There's going to be a wave of injuries.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, the consistency part's huge, and just creating a schedule that you can recover from and maintain for a long period of time, I think is a huge mistake that, even like Lauren Landau and Dr. Galpin and like all these other people that I've been around the last few years, they all agree that's one of the biggest mistakes in MMA,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Arut and I actually were just talking about that. We were talking about that a few weeks ago. There's a couple people that we know that get injured kind of a lot, and it's not a coincidence that those are also the people that they're only there for fight camps. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, they probably don't eat good. They probably don't sleep as much as they should. It's all these like simple, basic things like we've been talking about that just add up over time.
I never understood that mentality. Never understood it. The competition is so good. How can you not put in every little ounce of effort that you could possibly do? I still feel like I'm catching up, and I'll never catch up.
You just gotta hope it.
All you can do is put in the work.
For sure.
All right, cool. So this has been really cool for both of us. I'm sure once we get it up, our listeners are going to really appreciate it. So plug all your stuff. How can people find you and what kind of stuff you do?
If people want to learn more about this type of stuff, go to fightcampconditioning.com. If they search Fight Camp Conditioning on any of the social networks, they'll find us as well. But we showcase coaches and other professionals that support combat athletes. So there's a huge amount of information. There's like over 400 blogs, over 100 podcasts. There's dozens of like digital programs people could download if they want to follow a training program or something like that. But if they got more questions and stuff like that, they can use the contact us button and just ask questions and go from there, you know?
Nice. Awesome. Arut, go ahead and do we need to plug our own stuff? I feel like we've been doing it every week for like a year now. People know where it's at. Yeah. Quotes and Chokes, Arut Prigozhin, Nick Angeloni. Just do some search and you'll find us. All right, Corey, thanks a lot, man. It was
a pleasure.
Late too, by the way, but
it was nice to meet you guys.
California.
Good talking.
All right, man. Well, you have a good rest of your day.
You too, guys. See ya.
All right, thank you.